I want to discuss Donald Trump's plans so far to tell you how horrifying and backwards Donald intends to make his administration. Now, as a reminder from yesterday, I advised Democrats, as did Italian Luigi Zingales, who experienced the Berlusconi reign in Italy. Democrats should work with Trump where there is overlap. Infrastructure, non-interventionist Middle East foreign policy, a few other areas. But there isn't a huge amount of overlap with what Donald Trump is saying that he is going to do. So let's go through what Trump has said so far that he plans to do as President Donald. Number one, President Donald has a creationist vice president who wants to teach creationism in school. Mike Pence avoided accepting evolution numerous times. He believes in creationism personally. He says we should teach it to our kids alongside evolution. This is the vice president now, selected by President-elect Donald. What is that going to do to education during Trump's administration? More on that a little bit later. Number two, Trump is going to start trade wars that will hurt Americans. He's going to increase prices on products for Americans via the trade wars he alleges he is going to wage. Won't really help anybody. As we've expressed before, China has ways to retaliate, and we've talked about that. Europe can also retaliate. Not good. Not good for the average American consumer. Number three, Trump is going to bring in Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who expressed that he liked the KKK until he found out that they smoke pot, and also said that no good people smoke pot. This is very, very dangerous. We have someone who is full-fledged drug war type, and this is an absolute and utter disaster. Number four, Donald Trump has said that he is going to basically kill the new regulations that were due to go in effect on December 1st, which would demand that companies pay time and a half overtime to voters who make under $47,000 a year. Raw Story said that the plan is likely to be one of the first measures that Trump will destroy when he takes office on January 20th. Not sounding great for middle America, I must say. Number five, Donald Trump is going to be appointing an education secretary, Betsy DeVos, from the Acton Institute. The Acton Institute has actually written that they don't see child labor as a bad thing, but actually something that really should be looked at because it can be really good for kids to have a long day's work and a load of sweat. It's a load of something, that I think we can say. That will be Donald Trump's education secretary. Number six, we have now learned from Reince Priebus that climate science denial will be Donald Trump's default position. Trump has hired Myron Ebel, a denier, to lead his EPA transition, completely counter to almost all science. And we will talk about that in more detail later in the show. Number seven, as I told you last week, Donald Trump wants to end net neutrality. He doesn't really know much of what it is, but he knows enough to know that he is against it. And that is incredibly dangerous for independent media like our program and many of our friends. It is incredibly dangerous in terms of strengthening the oligopoly that we have, really a monopoly in many cases for some of these internet service providers. Disaster. Number eight, Donald Trump wants to defund NASA's climate research because it has become political. NASA research can only become political when one political party consistently fights against science and facts and turns it into politics. And that is an absolute embarrassment. Number nine, we told you that Donald Trump is going to be implementing smaller tax cuts than he promised during his campaign. But what he is going to be doing is giving the biggest tax cuts to the richest Americans. The plan will cut taxes by 0.8% for the vast majority of people. Oh, and 14+% for the top 1%. Really making a stand for the little man, huh? Just like Donald Trump promised. And number 10, I'm going to dig into this a lot later. Trump wants a year in prison for burning flags or the stripping of citizenship. I don't want to get into that right now, Pat, because we're going to delve into that more later. This is not about politics or conservatism. This is about how will these policies make America great again? And more interestingly, how will it help middle-class Americans? It's very clear how it'll help the 1%, right? We get that. How are these policies going to help the group that Donald Trump said he would help and that by and large, in many parts of the country, bought into it that Trump would help them.
Right, totally. I mean, Donald Trump apparently ran a populist campaign or a pseudo-populist campaign.
Yeah.
But who in middle America is really concerned about ending net neutrality or cutting taxes on the top 1%?
No.
It's just a sham.
What's the counter to all of this from the Trumpists? It's, oh, David, this is all a premature critique because nothing is official yet. Trump hasn't actually been sworn in. If that's your counter argument, you're basically saying you don't believe the guy you voted for will do what he's saying he will do. What a ringing endorsement, defending your guy by saying, I don't know that he will actually do the things that he says he will do. He won't be as bad as we say because he's lying about what he will do. We're in for a bumpy ride, aren't we, Pat? If the Trumpists have to defend their guy by saying, don't believe what he's promising to do.
And don't get us wrong. I mean, some of these promises he's made, we hope that he backs off of.
Sure.
We'll just have to see which ones he picks.
Yeah. And we saw, like with the Affordable Care Act, he's already going from it's a total disaster that we're getting rid of to, actually some of the provisions in the Affordable Care Act are, quote, very good. So in every aspect, his supporters, his base, particularly his base that is not very rich, has been completely bamboozled. Some of the things they wanted him to do, he's already backed off of. And now that we're getting a sense of what he is actually going to do, we see that many of those policies would be hugely damaging to that base that so fervently supported this guy. Send me your thoughts on this. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show, and we have an excellent program for you today. I've talked about how people of all ages, but particularly millennials, are owning cars less and participating more in the sharing economy. And one of the more popular options is Zipcar, which gets you a car when you want it, when you need it. They offer all sorts of cars, SUVs, hybrids, whatever you need. It includes insurance and it includes gas. You just pay for the time that you actually use the car. And you can reserve the car online from your smartphone over the phone. Then you unlock it with your Zip card. Each car share member reduces their personal CO2 emissions by between 1,100 and 1,600 pounds per year. For our audience, Zipcar is offering $25 of free driving credit if you sign up at joinzipcar.com/David. Support our show, reduce your carbon emissions and your spending on cars. Sign up at joinzipcar.com/David.